All right. Hello and happy Thursday. Hope you all are doing well. Thanks so much for joining us for our third of four events in our virtual travel event series. My name's Haven Quinlan, and I work at the USC Alumni Association, and I have the great pleasure of working with our travel programs, which includes our partners and all of our Gamecock travelers. And so I'm very excited to get to chat with you all today about our trips coming up with Orbridge. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. This is a Zoom webinar, so while you guys aren't able to unmute yourselves to ask questions, we do want it to be an interactive session. So if you aren't super familiar with Zoom, there should be a toolbar across the bottom of your screen. There will be a little chat button and a Q&A button. You can use either of those to submit any questions that you have, and we'll make sure that we answer all of those at the end. So they can be trip specific or just general alumni travel questions. But without any further ado, I get to introduce our partner today. Bobby works for Orbridge, and he is going to chat with us about our trips with them in 2024 and 2025. Got a lot of great things coming up. So thanks so much, Bobby.
Thank you, Haven, and thanks everyone for letting me share a little bit about our company and then the trips that we're going to be doing with South Carolina. I've had the fortune to go down and visit Columbia a few times, and I always enjoy my time there. I always find myself at the 5 Points and then walk to the river, and hopefully will make my way back this coming fall. I am going to share my screen now, and hopefully all goes well. Slideshow. How does that look, Haven?
Looks great.
Okay, good. So so we have one trip in 2024 and 3 trips in 2025, all very different, kind of a neat mixture of North America, Europe, more gastronomy, and then a really unbelievable one at the end, where we're doing a southeastern portion of Africa by this incredible Rovus rail. So a wide range, and so look forward to diving in here. I'm going to be cognizant of everyone's time, so I'm going to try to do about 30 minutes or so. But if you have any questions during or after, please, I look forward to engaging. So a little bit about Orbridge Travel. So we have been around since 2007, and we work exclusively in the alumni sector of the travel industry. So all of our trips and itineraries are developed with university and liberal art colleges alumni in mind. We know that the big part of it is the affinity, so we really want to make it a South Carolina trip. We do small group. So as you'll see in these coming trips that I'm going to display, our group sizes are about 20 to 60 primarily. We are known quite a bit in our industry as providing options throughout a trip. For example, as you'll see when I talk about some of the national parks we go to, people have the option, depending on mobility, activity level, to do a hike, or if somebody wants to do something a little bit less intensive, we'll be able to set them up with maybe a walking tour of some of the various native art galleries. And the small group experience allows us to do this, and that we've developed our itineraries to be flexible. So you're not just always doing a museum, a city tour, and then, wash, rinse, repeat the next day. You can really make it a dynamic kind of itinerary for you. You'll see with this first trip especially that one of the ways that we've had success in getting to see an area and meet its people and culture is through the local gastronomy. So there's a lot of wines, there's a lot of the foods, the olive oils, the cheeses, things of that nature, where it's literally hands-on, where you can help make this stuff, and you're with these people who have been doing their various recipes and things like that for generation to generation. So it's one of several ways we've found you can really get to see a local culture. We have expert guides and directors. especially so in some of these, European flavors trips where oftentimes our travel director will be a local who literally knows everybody. So if you wanted to go out and you love balsamic vinegar and you wanted to see how that's done, they'll call up their cousin, that kind of thing. And then in our national parks trips, most of our guides were either former rangers or still doing research within the parks, and well connected with all the various folks in the parks. So, they know nooks and crannies that, the public would not know about. As far as inclusions, pretty much everything in our trips is included except for airfare. So all of your excursions, all your transfers, all your luggage handling, all your meals, personal purchases and airfare is really the only thing that would be separate. So with that, I'd love to dive in here to some of our itineraries that we're doing with you all, beginning in the fall of 2024. So this is a great one. So this one kind of captures our flavor style trip. It is definitely based around gastronomy. Small group size, about 22 people or so. And what we do is we're in Tuscany region between Florence and Siena. So it's this gorgeous kind of undulating hills, wide expanses that you see in the magazines and things like that. And we stay in a tiny little town, Castellina, where it's kind of remote, but close enough we can go on these day trips. And we stay at this incredible property called the Castello La Leccia. So small group, 22 people going into the heart of Tuscany and staying at this amazing property. And there you go, Castello La Leccia. And it was crazy that day. I apologize for that. There was it was a rooster of some sort that got in the mix in my picture. I don't know. Somebody said something about a gamecock. I don't know. But that's the Castello La Leccia, as it were. So you can see it's up perched on a hill. It's a former castle going back to the 13th century. So you're literally staying in a historic site. And it's on the property is a vineyard and an olive oil making site. So just to, right off the bat, before you're even doing any touring or any other excursions, the property itself becomes part of the trip. So you can go down to the wine cellar whenever you want. The owners live on property, the winemakers live on property, so they'll be talking to you the whole time. It's very organic. It's not like, oh, you have to be here at 4:00 and we're doing a wine tour. It's just you see and you become part of the property. But then you can also bike, you can do walks. We'll do cooking classes. There'll be people who come from long ways just to visit here to try their wine, and we're staying there. So a little bit of the itinerary, I'll kind of focus on just some highlights from each of these itineraries. So this is a good example of where we combine the history touring with the culinary, as I mentioned. So first of all, you fly into Florence, and you fly out of Florence. So it's a great gateway city as far as round trip flights. That first day, we just enjoy the castle. We just enjoy the property. We do walk through the vineyards with the owners, things of that nature. And just a nice leisurely day. Pienza is the first day where we're actually kind of getting out into one of these other small villages and areas. So definitely known as a hub during the Renaissance, Pienza. So we'll do a tour of the city and walk through the streets and things of that nature in the morning. But then in the afternoon, we go to this place called Pordera il Casale, which is this beautiful organic farm, and they're kind of part of the slow food movement. And so we'll see how they have kind of transitioned over the past decades into kind of this new foray of slow food cooking, and it's all natural, all there, and people just absolutely love it. Now, Cortona would be more of a history day. So Cortona, you might know if you ever knew the Under the Tuscan Sun. It's the hilltop kind of Romanesque type village that overlooks a valley and the setting of that area. And so that day is kind of, we do a tour and then you just enjoy it. We don't want to rush people or things of that nature. We want to allow people to really soak in these places. Volterra and San Gimignano. So San Gimignano, they used to say, is kind of like the New York of the Middle Ages because it has some of the tallest buildings in all of the 14th, 15th centuries. So we'll go there, but then one of the neat things is that we go outside San Gimignano, and it's a blurry picture one of my colleagues took there, but we go to this renowned chef's restaurant where we take over the restaurant and we just cook with them, learn about Tuscan culinary, how they do these things, and people really enjoy it. The next day in my pronunciations might be bad, Montegioni and Gaioli, again, a little bit more of city touring, but then we go to a cheese farm. And then in the top right there, one of people's favorite things here is we go to this gelato mastermind. He has won every award, and I put the picture of him up there just because he's a personality in and of itself. And he shows the whole gelato process and how it can be its own kind of culinary art form and not just, you know, Baskin Robbins. And then finally we end in Siena, which is just such a gorgeous city, and you can see the square down there in Siena. So it's a well-paced trip. Again, full-on wine, food, everything of that nature, but then some really neat history and culture of some of these towns. So kind of a 180 now. So we're back in North America. I really like this this itinerary. So we do quite a bit of national parks in the US, and what I like about this one is that, you know, you have Yellowstone as kind of the flagship park at the end of the trip. But we get a lot of people who take this trip who maybe they've been to Yellowstone, they've been once or for a day or something, but have never gone to these other parks, to Badlands and Custer and Mammoth, that are so kind of unique. And again, to do it with experts, rangers who know where to go. They're on, you know, on walkie-talkies about, oh, there's a bison, you know, herd over here. There's, you know, a massive elk run here. It really can change the whole experience. And the other key part of this is that I'll touch on is that we stay in the park. The lodges that you stay at, again, become part of the trip. So there we go. We have Custer Memorial on the left, and then we have Mount Rushmore on the right. I was excited to see that new change they just made. They did a makeover and added someone to it. Don Staley, of course, congratulations on the great season so far for South Carolina. So here we go. The first one, Custer, and I put the picture. I mean, this is where Calvin Coolidge used to go in the summer times, surrounded by beautiful forests, and it's right in the park. So you're not staying at a hotel and then bussing in. And then for those of you who are interested in trying different game, they are really well known for doing all sorts of different interesting game dishes. Spearfish Canyon Lodge. This is in another park in the canyon. It's in Wyoming, so completely different feel to it. So after Custer, you make your way down here. And what's nice about this is that they have these great hiking trails, as you can see below, that are also been built out so people, if you want to do the intense hike, you can, or if you want to do some of the more leisurely hikes, you can go to the rim of the canyon, and then there's a Black Hills waterfall and things like that. And that's just part of your lodging. You know, that's not even an official excursion. That's just how this program goes. And finally, Old Faithful. So in Yellowstone, we stay in the heart. This is probably the most requested lodge in the park. And it's beautiful. It was constructed with all wooden logs from that area. It has this iconic fireplace in the center of it that people will sit around, have a beer at night, kind of talk about what went on in the day. And yeah, it's a beautiful lodge. So the lodges are a big part of the trip, as you can tell. So it's great. So we start in Rapid City, so a neat South Dakota town in and of itself. But then the very first day, we're driving through the Badlands. So that picture on the top, one of the more remarkable geological areas in the United States, if not the world. You have this from 100 million years ago, when the seas in the glacial period were above it. They had brought in this red sandstone, and as they receded over thousands and thousands of years, it just got ingrained in the rock, and you have some of nature's greatest artworks in the Badlands, and we go right through the heart of it. And then what's really neat is that in Custer Park, we do it by Jeep. So you can see a picture there. So it's about 6 or 7 people in a Jeep. So it's a big portion of the trip driving through Custer. So rather than just do it outside, the park on a coach or something, we take, almost a whole day, half day going through it, where you're right up close with the bison and all the various other mammals and animals. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we go to the Crazy Horse Memorial, and we also go to Mount Rushmore, and we'll spend a 3/4 day or so at each, about half 3/4. So you can really spend the time there, but then there's neat little town and there's local artisans, and we get some discussions with the Navajo tribes there as well at the Crazy Horse site, and then to Spearfish Canyon, which we had discussed a little bit ago. So the second half of the itinerary is making our way to Yellowstone. So, even if you've been, you can go 100 times and see something new. And this goes back to where we do options. So you're not getting on a bus with 40 other people and doing, the triangle of the key places. We're going and kind of going through the eyes of a ranger who's guiding you, and an expert, and people who are researching there, and they'll show you what they're working on. And again, we spend 2.5 full days there, so you can really do as intensive or as not as you'd like, and you can't beat going back to the Old Faithful Lodge at night to kind of sort through the day. And finally, Grand Teton National Park is on our way to Jackson, so not a shabby way to end the trip, to be driving through the Tetons. Now we're going to get into our trains. So this is easily one of our most popular trips, and we go Toronto to Vancouver, and we do it on this classic Canadian Pacific Railroad train, kind of your old, you'd think of Art Deco style going back into the early 1900s. And you see this kind of incredible change of scenery as you go from the deciduous area of Toronto. And then as you get out of Ontario and kind of that lake scenery, you get into Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and it's this huge expanse of prairies. And then, of course, star of the show as you make your way up into Alberta and the Canadian Rockies, where you'll see the rivers and you'll see the waterfalls. And it's all on a luxury train. Really, really neat trip. So, oh yeah, again, I'm sorry, all these pictures. I think there was a tiger, he was hanging on a bridge, and someone said, you don't really see tigers here often, but then we figured out it had come up from some place called Clemson, and it did fall, unfortunately. But in any event, all these things ruining my pictures. Okay, so here's the Canadian. This is just such a neat train. So we take off there's a whole front half of it, which is called the Prestige class of the train. And we take over the entire thing. Then there's a second half that's completely separated, and that's for people who might go from one city to the next. We have all of these carts to ourselves. So we have our own Skyline cart, our own observation cart, our own dining cart, our own bar cart. And then each of the cabins you have, as you kind of see in the picture there, that's when it's set up in the evening. But during the day, the beds flip out like a Murphy bed or whatnot. So then you have a little couch, you got a coffee table, things like that. And you got concierge service, you got an open bar. So it's this really, really great experience on the train. We also have speakers throughout. So our guides will be, as you're going from place to place, lecturing. We spend a full day in Toronto on the front end, full day in Vancouver on the back end. But then on the train, it's 4 days, and you're getting off about 3 to 4 hours each day. But it's definitely a lot of train time, and that's why they really enhance. And the scenery you're seeing is just so magnificent as it is. So as I mentioned, so you get to start in Toronto. We stay at the Royal York, which is a cool old property from the 1920s. It was created by the Canadian Pacific Railroad. So there's all sorts of neat old artifacts relating to the railroad that you'll then take off on the next day. So it's kind of a nice way to start. And then from there, we begin the trip. And so, as I said, that first part is kind of foresty lake until you get to the prairies. That's a picture down there in Saskatchewan. And we stop in Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Kamloops, a few other places where you have maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to explore the town, or maybe go on some hiking trails, things of that. And then you continue on to eventually make our way to Vancouver. And And then this is the most spectacular portion of the trip as you get into British Columbia and the Rockies. And then Vancouver. Again, we stay right in the heart of Vancouver, another old property. And we have a full day of touring in Vancouver, and then you have time to just enjoy it. Such a unique Southwest Canadian city. Okay. Now this, okay, take a deep breath. Lot going on here. This is a trip. If I could do any of them, this would be the one. So it's Southeastern Africa, but so much to see and do. Mixture of safari, you're traveling by train, mixture of capital cities, you're getting to see this history. There's a lot of trips out there that'll just do South Africa, Joburg, and maybe you go down to Cape Town, which is great too. And we do have a Cape Town extension. But what we're doing is doing South Africa and then working our way up north to some of the most spectacular parts of the entire continent. So again, this is by train. So we'll do one night in Johannesburg and actually in Pretoria. We'll do one night in the heart of Kruger National Park where we do a safari lodge. And then we'll do 2 nights at the end of Victoria Falls Lodge overlooking the falls. The rest of it, you're on the train, similar to the Canadian Via Rail, and it's 8 nights on the train. And this is a famous from the Rovis Rail. And as you can see, it's kind of like out of a movie. And similarly, we take over the whole train. So it's just our group. And there you go. So same concept. We have 2 dining carts. We have our own bar cart. We have an outdoor observation deck on the back. You have your suites with, en-suite bathrooms. And again, they can lift up the bed. So during the day, you have more space and area to enjoy your cabin. The food is supposed to be excellent there. They have local African chefs and they incorporate local cuisines and also with some European influences as well. Okay, so here we go. So flying to Joburg. So flights to Joburg are, there's quite a lot of airlines that will do them. So a good starting off point, but we don't spend a whole lot of time in Joburg. We spend a little bit of time, but then we go up to Pretoria. So we go to the site, the region where Mandela and Desmond Tutu headquartered themselves throughout the 90s. And so we'll see some of the sites, important sites during that period as the apartheid was being broken by them before boarding the train. And then from the train, then we take off and we start going north. So you've got South Africa. Okay, now we're in our second country already. So we go to Eswatini, which used to be Swaziland, and we go to what they call the Valley of Heaven, which is some of the most lush and beautiful parts of all that region. And also the capital is supposed to be really, really interesting, and we spend some time there. Then we get back on the train. Now we're getting up into our third country, and it's only day 6, so we're in Maputo. And so we're still doing more of kind of the history anthropology. We did Pretoria, we did capital of Swaziland, now we're doing the capital of Mozambique. And this is supposed to be one of the kind of the most thriving capitals in Africa. You get a lot of influences from the various surrounding countries, but then there's been a lot of European influences there, and renowned for its art, and it's getting to be known more and more for culinary elements. So then we get back on the train, and now we're getting into the nature. We're getting to the safari. So we go to Kruger National Park. We stay in the park, and this is your classic game experience. In the morning, all-day game drive. Afternoon, when the sun's hot as all get up, go take a nap, grab a beer. Then you come back and you do the late afternoon. And Kruger is one of the most concentrated wildlife places on the planet. So then we go on the train and we go through the Drakensberg Mountains, which are some of the highest mountain ranges in all of Africa, to kind of just enjoy the train as we cut through there. And another game reserve, the Malakali Game Reserve, full day aboard the train. And then Great Zimbabwe. So we go to this incredible medieval site, and you can see, from the 13th to 17th centuries, you can see that this was maybe the most international location outside of Egypt in Africa. They found Persian artifacts. They found Chinese artifacts. They found Japanese artifacts dating back, almost hundreds, almost 1,000 years, all in this place way down in the southern portion of Africa. And so it's neat to just be reminded at how international certain areas of Africa were and how thriving they were. Then we go to 2 more national parks. So you're going to get a full safari game experience on this trip. And then, of course, you end with the iconic Victoria Falls. And we stay at a great lodge that overlooks the falls. So it's a lot going on. It's 16 days from your door to door. But I think it's really one of the special itineraries out there. And that was it for me. I figured I would end on that image of Victoria Falls and kept it under 30 minutes and hope to at least paint a picture of what our trips are about and some of these destinations and some of the highlights. So happy to answer any questions or extrapolate on any of the items I discussed. And for more information, we'll have a co-branded site with all these trips, hopefully in the next week or so, and that'll have all the pricing, the rates, everything of that nature.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bobby. That was incredible. And gosh, I want to go on all of these trips now. So people might have a hard decision picking. Okay. And you said hopefully around next week, they'll be able to book even in 2025 trips.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Oh yeah, they can book now. I just will have our South Carolina co-branded page up and running too with the new trips.
Okay, great.
But
And
yeah, you can book any of these. Yeah.
I will make sure to follow up with all of you all with that link when that's live. And in just a moment, I'll put the link to the Alumni Association's travel website in the chat so you guys can click that as well. We should have all of our 2025 offerings up there in the coming weeks, but it does look like we've got one question here. So I'll read that to you. On the South Africa trip, how much time is off the train and how will you get from place to place when not on the train?
Yeah, great question. So for this one, there's actually a lot of time off the train. So in each of the locations, each of the cities, we're off the train for at least 5 hours. Some of them even more, where we'll have the evening if you want to. We travel at night primarily. We'll be leaving most of the places around 6 o'clock or so. When you get off the train and you're going to a site or whatnot, we will have small coaches. So a coach of about 20 people or so. And each one will have a guide on it. They're air conditioning, solid coaches. But the places that we're going in relation to where the train stops are never more than about 30 minutes to get to. So it's not a whole lot of coach time. And then like for the game drives, we'll be off all day. And so for some of those, for example, like when we go to Hwange National Park, we'll get off the train. We'll spend the day in the national park, and it's so vast, we'll have moved our way north and we pick up the train at another stop. It's already moved and meeting us. So we're maximizing the time off the train, but you'll also be able to enjoy every evening, really enjoy the full bit of it on the train.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a good question. And correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, but the co-branded website will have a link to each of these trips where you can probably dive even more into the itineraries and some of those excursions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it'll have the full day by day, all the excursions. Can give you an idea of the different types of cabins on the trains and things of that nature.
You guys have other questions, just a reminder in the Q&A or the chat, excuse me, at the bottom of your screen, you can type those in. The local cuisine and all of these as well looks very exciting to me.
Yeah, very much so. And that Tuscany trip is really great. And it's a small property. There's only 12 rooms on that entire castle estate, so it's very intimate as well.
Definitely a dream experience.
Yeah.
All All right, Bobby and I will stay on here for a few minutes. If you guys have questions, you can certainly type those into the chat. You should all have my email address as well from the reminder email this morning with the Zoom link. So you can feel free to reach out to me via email or phone with any questions. Always happy to chat travel. If I don't know the answer, I can ask Bobby. We can get you guys all the answers to your questions and help with your booking. But before we head out, we do have a drawing for some travel vouchers. So I put everyone's names on some papers over here. I'm going to get them all folded up nicely. And Orbridge has generously donated 3 different $250 travel vouchers. So just going to mix these up in the bowl here and draw our winners. All right. First winner, Cindy. Lucky duck. I think she's been a winner on another one as well. It's your lucky week, Cindy. All right. Number 2, Carol. Congratulations. And our last one, drum roll. Sylvia, congratulations to each of you
Great.
guys. You will get an email from us with some information on how to use that voucher with it attached in your email. So keep an eye on the email you use to book your Zoom link today. But other than that, we'll stay on here for a few minutes. If you guys have more questions, you can type those in. You can always contact us afterwards. And thank you again for joining. Hope you all have a wonderful day.